everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Bodacity Show. I'm glad you're here, whether you're watching us live or watching the recording. I'm here today with the fabulous Christine West, all the way from Alaska, which I just found out is actually 2.5 times bigger than Texas, which I did not know. So there you go. So welcome, Christine. I'm glad you're here.
Me too. Thank you for the invite and the introduction.
You're welcome. I'm going to introduce the formal side of Christine, as you know, and then I'm going to ask her to tell us something juicy about herself that we wouldn't guess. And then we're going to launch into her topic about how to discover your inner mastery. So here's the official bio. Dr. Christine West is in the business of people. She helps business owners, leaders, and professionals crush people stress, frustration, and toxicity. She helps people to emotionally connect, have synchronized communication, and move people forward while understanding what makes them tick. This ends up creating an uplifting environment that brings out the best in people, where people want to fully participate. She leads her clientele to unlock one's inner mastery to be clear, brilliant, and effective with people, no matter the industry. Christine lives in Alaska, and she specializes in emotional intelligence and communication, leadership, behavioral modification, business psychology, and mind growth. Awesome. I love all that.
Awesome.
It's always fun to sit there and listen to your own bio, isn't it? It's kind of.
It is. I was like, who is that? That's me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like for me, it always feels like it's so long, even though it's really not, but it's like, okay, let's just get on with it. Anyway, so tell us something about you that we wouldn't guess from all of that on your website or your bio or whatever. What's something people would never guess about you?
Wow, that's okay. I'll share something, and I'll share one thing personally, and I'll share one thing professionally. Okay. On the professional side, is that once upon a time I used to be an engineer.
Oh.
I was a sales engineer. So most people, when we speak about psychology, a lot of people say, no way.
They do seem diametrically opposed. Did you say sales engineer?
Yes.
What's sales engineer?
Well, the sales engineer's role is to be that communication bridge between, techie people, business people, salespeople. So between customer and the company you work for. So it's a constant setting up your salesperson and your company for success, and being able to theorize things. So that way, once the customer buys in, then the techie people can actually engineer it and actually implement it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
But on the personal side, to your question about things that people may not really understand about me, or based on my bio, is I'm a gal who, you can take me out into the outdoors and I can get muddy, messy. I can play in just about any activity, but then I can be dressed up for the opera in an evening gown in the evening. So I am that diverse.
Okay, love it. Well, and all 4 of the people that I know that live in Alaska tend to be pretty resilient and self-reliant, because Alaska tends to foster that. So that makes a lot of sense to me. So tell us why you do the work you do before we launch into your work. So why is this so important to you?
The simple answer is because I believe that all people deserve to be happy, and all people deserve to feel fulfilled, have a life that's fulfilling, and that we spend so much time in our work that why not make it a happy one? Why not have it to be more fulfilling? Why not, when you come home from work, to share your joys instead of your woes with the people that you live with? It's really that simple.
That makes sense. I was typing away, so I was trying to be quiet. Welcoming the people who are with us.
Awesome.
So that makes a lot of sense, but was that always something that resonated with you, like even when you were a kid? What was kind of the genesis of that?
Well, No, I was a kid that was typical, that I did not come from entrepreneurial parents. I didn't come from a conditioning that said you deserve to be happy. It was far more of a paradigm that said, okay, this is what we give you. We're taking care of you as parents, family members. And if you spoke up, it was like, if you don't like what's here, well, then go figure out how to create something better for yourself. So some kids take that message differently than this kid. So this kid took it as, well, no, I don't like these choices. So I need to go out and do something else. So I did a lot of those things as a kid, entrepreneur, little ventures like lemonade stands, shoveling snow, raking, stuff like that. But as later in life, I went into my first career that we already talked about a moment, and it wasn't because it made me happy. I chased the money, and because in the 90s, technology was hot.
Mm.
And so what happened was, why all of a sudden, my big why was, there's only so many times that you can sell somebody something they're not implementing. So if they're not using it. So I wasn't paid upon somebody implementing something. I was paid on somebody buying something. And so I started waking up with a consciousness of realizing that, plain and simple, I didn't feel as though I was doing right by the customers. And in 2001, the tech stocks started plummeting, and things around the corporation I was working for got insane. I mean, insane with, the person who was your buddy yesterday, all of a sudden was your enemy. Because when people start losing money and they start bleeding money and it's chaotic, that's where you start to see a lot. And it's not necessarily that those adverse moments, if you're not trained to really understand yourself, which I wasn't back then. Back then, emotions were a foreign term that you might as well have been speaking, Japanese to me, something like that. So part of when I got myself into this place of where I needed to take a time out, a pause. And in this pause period, I started realizing I gave so much to my work, and it wasn't really something that made me happy, even though on the outside of me, it looked like I had the best life in the world. But inside I was miserable, and I didn't understand it. I did not want to keep living based on other people's expectations, other people's definitions of success, and keep stuffing it because I was getting ill and I was breaking down. So I took some time off work. And the simple thing that happened was, I realized by taking 90 days off work, and then I did nothing for the first 30, nothing changes. And then somebody that I trusted, came over and said to me, literally, Christine, get off your ass and go do something. And I said, what do you want me to do? And he said, go to Alaska. And I said, why? He says, because it's better than you sitting here. Now, he didn't say move to Alaska. So it intrigued me enough that I went to the computer and I searched out adventure in Alaska, because I knew that I couldn't do something tame. A cruise was not going to get me out of my funk. So I signed myself up for a beginning mountaineering course. And I remember when I called the exploration place, and they said to me, well, okay, are you mentally, emotionally, physically fit? Well, I was a fibber. And I said, yes, I am. And my conditions will you allow me to quit once I'm committed on this glacier? And they said, no. Okay, condition 1 met. The second condition was, will my cell phone work? And they said, no. And I said, 2 conditions met, here's my credit card. So, so what happened was 7 days of this, being in this different environment, and everything that I came with my conditioning could not help me to be successful in this environment. But what happened magically for me, the gift, on the 7th day when I was in base camp waiting for a commuter plane to come get me, and the rest of the group was climbing another mountain, was it was our good Lord had said, hello, Christine, you can't go anywhere. And I had this major spiritual awakening. And in my consciousness, I was risen above every problem that I thought was problematic. And I saw how I can solve things in a nanosecond.
Mm.
And what happened was the last thing that I heard was, yes, you want to live your divine purpose, or no, you want to go back to sleep and to keep doing what you're doing. And I said, well, what do I got to do? And I heard just say yes and follow my lead. And I said, yes. Well, back then I thought fairy dust was waved over me and I got to be who I am, but it doesn't work that way. So the why is that for me of realizing once we get above things and we develop ourselves, we can start mastering the things that we feel are so problematic, and they're really not as problematic as most of us actually think.
Mm. So that's going to intrigue people, your comment about, I figured out how to, or I saw how to solve things in a nanosecond. So what is that? What is that way of accessing answers quickly and easily?
Well, part of through my own development. Now, back then, I could not articulate it this way because I thought it was just like, wow, I entered into magic, and I just wanted to hold it. But I had to understand that I couldn't necessarily always hold this type of vibration or state of consciousness. But what I had to really understand, which gets into what I do and the why about the nanosecond, is that and I'm going to explain this as simple as possible, is that what I had to realize is that if I was holding the identity of somebody who was unhappy and holding that identity, living out by conditioning, why couldn't I live an identity that was happy and shifted into this other who I am now? Why couldn't I do that?
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So the nanosecond it's not about the amount of time, it's the amount of how long it takes for the resistance to diminish. And I'm not saying that I automatically, like part of my first, tests where I could not just come to Alaska and abandon what I had back in Chicago. When I left Alaska the first trip, I thought I was going to start my business in Chicago. My awareness was increased to realizing that if I started it there in an environment that knew who I used to be and they didn't get it, it wasn't that they were evil people. It was just that they didn't get it. I would spend more time fighting the familiar. And so I had to clean up things, meaning that I had to clean up relationships. I needed to move myself, sell properties. I needed to be in alignment with where I was going. Instead of holding on to all the things that didn't work out. So it was purging, it was healing, it was completing. So the nanosecond is really about having that unwavering focus and being so crystal clear about what I understood as this is my purpose. I found purpose.
Right.
And when you find purpose and you know what you're here to do, it's very difficult to distract you from it.
Right. That's part of why I do so much work with people on their why. Their why is another word for purpose. And I think it's really foundational to being in alignment, on track, and on purpose, and being able to make decisions easier and faster because of that. So yeah, I totally get that. And oh, you had a phrase that I just was going to say, fighting familiarity. Was that it?
Yes.
Yeah, I love that phrase. And I think that that's a really big part of awakening or being in a position to choose, is to fight the familiar, the comfort zone, that sense of going along and kind of waking up to a choice, to choosing.
Yes.
Yeah, my kind of variation or version of that is to say, tell a better story, because we're making it all up anyways. So rather than the sucky stuff, story. All right, so let's talk about authentic change and self-mastery. Before we go there, what kind of doctor are you? So
I'm a
you're
doctor of business psychology.
business psychology. Okay.
Yeah, I have a master's in clinical psychology, and I'm also trained in hypnotherapy. I'm trained in NLP. I'm trained in transpersonal psychology, and then my bachelor's is in business information systems. So I have that
Yes,
technical
yes.
business. So I've combined all these things with all my experiences to do it the business MD, the Dr. Christine way.
Okay, I love it. Because I was wondering, so business MD,
Yeah.
what it sounds like is you do like some of the work that I do, which is getting the 4 inches between their ears working so the business can work, right?
Correct. So so my whole thing is that everybody wants to go after strategy, and I get it why. I don't fault people for that. But yet what I see constantly happen, and I've made these mistakes, this is why I'm admitting to it out loud and I'm being recorded, is that we want to skip over the things that we don't want to deal with. So we want to sweep it under the rug.
Mhm.
And that's a very familiar pattern. I grew up that way. Many people have grown up that way. We don't deal with it. But until you're going to deal with who you are inside, how you believe, how you actually, what your value system is, how you think. And I'm so strong on emotions because everything at that emotional side begins. So if you feel joyful about something, you're going to start to think, okay, this is good. If you feel angered about something, you're going to think, well, okay, that's bad. And I'm being simple, very simplistic right now, which is there's a lot of belief in that. So part of, yes, what I'm doing is before I ever get into a business strategy with somebody, there needs to be an upgrade of the inside, because one needs to be prepared for their new battlefield. They need to be able to withstand the things that they're going to endure. And I can't predict what somebody's going to endure because everybody comes to the table with different traumas. People come to the table with different experiences. People come to the table often, and I'm sure you deal with this too, is how many entrepreneurs out there have coach trauma, as far as they had relationship with coaches that took their money and didn't deliver.
Right. Coach or program or mastermind or whatever. Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of my positioning is around actually what I call industry rehab, because there's so much of that.
Yeah.
And I have a whole rant about why that's not okay and it shouldn't be that way. But anyway,
yeah, me and you can go on and on and on about that, but that's not what this is about right now.
That's right. Okay, well, so there's going to be a lot of people who say, yes, I get it, I choose. And when it comes to real authentic change, how do we do that? How do we make the shift? How do we choose? Because it's not just about knowing, because we know that, we can choose a more positive thought or a more positive way of being or whatever. So how do we actually make authentic, lasting change?
Okay, from my point of view and my experience with this is I'm going to go back to the story I shared with you that took place in 2001. How did I go from the beginning of the year? Alaska was never on my radar. How was it by the end of the year, I was in Alaska without ever thinking about that I would ever want to go to this place? Okay, so once it was in my awareness and I experienced something that I never experienced before, and I realized, how can I make this change and not just have it to be a nice vacation or a nice journey that I talk about with people? That's, the story changes. Was, for me, it was getting, first of all, one has to get clear. And you have to get clear about what you're looking to do, who you need to be, because everybody makes the mistake of saying something like this. Well, when I have this, then I'll be happy. Well, guess what? It doesn't work that way. So, so it was, for me, okay, I want to be this business owner in Alaska
Mhm.
but I also had to be realistic with myself.
Mhm.
It wasn't as though I'm going to pop in Alaska and say, no, 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 here I am. Everybody buy from me, because a lot of times people think that. No, it doesn't work that way. So I had to be clear about the chunk that was on my plate.
Mhm.
And the chunk that was on my plate for me at that time was what relationships needed to come to a completion.
Mhm.
What properties did I have that needed to be sold?
Mhm.
I needed to find a vehicle, meaning another job that was going to move me to Alaska.
Mhm.
And so the chunk for me was 6 months. So I focused exactly on the move to Alaska, but in a project, like for those who are logical, so like my little project management of myself here was the end goal is move to Alaska. And what are the subsets that I need to do? So I had to take action. So the action that were aligned with this goal.
Mhm.
So I wasn't allowing the chatter of, say, family members of saying, you're nuts.
Mhm.
Are you kidding me? What you know what, you need therapy, you just went to Alaska and now all of a sudden you're giving up all of this, or what plan are you living, you have to, and I say that out loud because I know people have their own versions of that.
Mhm.
And so one has to be, that purpose needs to pull you.
Mhm.
That's when you know it's aligned, because it'll pull you. There's no doubt. There wasn't anything in me. I did not know how to be the business MD. I didn't even know it was called the business MD. I did not know that I was even going to be Dr. Christine West. That was too far away. It was taking a chunk
Mhm.
and aligning myself to what do I need to do daily. It was next step. It
Mhm.
was this step, that step, that step. It wasn't getting so far ahead that I would overwhelm myself.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And it sounds so how I could hear that is have a purpose that pulls you towards it, kind of reverse engineer what you need to do to get to that goal or that purpose or that objective, and then break it down into chunks of bite-sized action steps that you can take and just focus on the first step or the next step and keep
Yes.
focusing one step at a time. So tell us very quickly, how can we be brave enough to grow into that best version of ourselves? How do we?
Well, the way that I do and the way that I invite clients is to step into what I call, and it's a empirical emotional intelligence assessment, which will show one's patterns. Because I'm not in the argument business. I'm in the effectiveness business. So it's more of helping somebody see for themselves how they are, how self-aware they are, how purposeful they are, how they make decisions, how they solve problems, how they connect to people, or maybe they don't.
Mhm.
A lot of people that I witness, they're very strong on the outside, but their inside is crumbling.
Mhm.
And so it's very easy, it's because a lot of people, one thing I like to say that I think is super important for your listeners to hear is never lie to yourself.
Mm.
Never ever lie to yourself, and never overestimate yourself.
Mm.
And I say that because once you know how you're showing up, and at least in my world, once I can help somebody truly understand how they're showing up, then we can start to take what I consider those little baby steps and help them to understand, okay, what are we trying to do? So if that inner mastery, so if you're looking to be a better business owner, if you're looking to be a better leader, so if I'm working with a small business, let's say, this is very common in my customers, a leader who, say, for example's employees, rejects their lead. Okay.
Mhm.
So then I need to better help them understand why in the patterns, but then also help them with what does that leader need to do. So the clear thing is, I want people to follow me. Okay. So if you want people to follow you, well, then we need to start changing your inner world, and we need you to do certain things that will get that change.
Mhm.
And it's not, even though I said in my case, on the glacier it happened in a nanosecond. These things can happen in a nanosecond. Yes, there's a lot of light bulbs that go off, but it's not just knowing, it's being able to apply.
Mm-hmm.
So we can speak theory all day long, okay? And I have plenty of academic scholars that I can have banter with, but that does no good if you're going to just sit there and talk about how smart we are.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not about the knowing, it's about the doing based on what we know.
Correct. Spot on. Spot on.
Fall down is it's not that they don't know, it's that they don't act on what they know.
Yeah.
So how can people find out more about you and stay in touch with you?
Well, they can go to my website, thebusinessmd.net, and you can enter your contact information and you can write a note to me. So if you want to just be on my mailing list, great. If you want to say, hey, I want to talk to you and I want to talk to you about something specific, then tell me that and I'll get you on my calendar. Right. Because my style is, unless you're aligned with me and if I can better you, I do not want to take you on as a client.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that about you, and the integrity of nope, only if it's a fit and if there's a good kind of vibrational match.
Yes,
is the case of us working together. I think
yes.
Much more where business is shifting is making sure that things are aligned and
yes.
Workable between the people. So as opposed to just, yep, I can sell you, so I will, or at least I hope that's where it's going.
Well, I think that what people, because I am a visionary, and I always want to leave listeners with this, I do not want to spend a year with you if you're miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I'm not bringing out the best in you, because that's a lot of what I talk about, that I'm going to create an environment that's going to bring out the best. And if I'm not doing it, then shame on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, exactly. And it's a waste of our time and their money and their time if they are not getting value. So I love that about, I'm not in the argument business, I'm in the effectiveness business.
Yes.
Brilliant line too. I wrote that one down too. Go to thebusinessmd.net, thebusinessmd.net to sign up for her newsletter and check out her information and services. Thank you so much, Christine, for being here. What's one last thing that you'd like to, well, actually, before you do that, I'll let you have the last word. I do want to remind everyone that the Purpose and Profit Breakthrough is starting tomorrow. It's not too late to register. So go to bodacity.ca, Purpose and Profit. And it's a 3 half-day event that will support you in clarifying your why, what you should do and shouldn't do to get going, to get unstuck, to get more momentum, to get more clients, and how you're going to apply that in a way that fits for you. So what's the thing that's not the cookie cutter solution, but the one that fits for you? So if you really want to kick this year off strong, then please go register for the Purpose and Profit Breakthrough. If you're seeing this after this week, then, and those are 3 half days, like I said, so you don't get numb bum and numb brain. If you're seeing this after that, I will be running one in May and one in the fall. So please stay tuned here in the Facebook group and you'll find out more information about that. In the meantime, we'll leave you with one last thought from Christine West. So tell us, what's one thing you'd like people to take away and really apply starting today?
Starting today, I want everybody to be authentic. Showcase who you are authentic. If you're doing lives, if you're in your marketing copy, be authentic. Stop trying to be a copycat.
Yeah.
There's only one Jeanette. There's only one Christine. Be authentic who you are, because that's where people will feel that. They'll feel it if you're trying to fake it. That doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if it ever did, but it was certainly more prevalent and yeah, we need to knock that shit off. All right. Thank you, Christine. I appreciate you being here. And again, please check her out at thebusinessmd.net. Take care, everyone. Create a bodacious week. Go be brave. Go reverse engineer that purpose down to the tactical step you can implement right now so that you can really show up as your best self. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much. Thank you.